Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Scoob. As the title says, there will be spoilers in the second half of this, but of course, I will let you guys know when we get to that part. But just kicking things off, I loved it. I actually really enjoyed it. I am okay having spent the $10 to rent it for like 48 hours. And I thought it was good. I thought it was really good. Like, I love Scooby-Doo, which is why this is the only movie. Well, I probably would have done the comic book movies if they did Black Widow and, Wonder Woman. I probably would have done those because, that's kind of like in my realm. Scooby-Doo is in like that nerdy niche realm, like old school style. Like, I freaking love Scooby-Doo. I have watched every single except for like the last two versions of Scooby-Doo. So I haven't seen Mystery Inc. and the other one where they look really weird. I haven't seen the last two cartoons, although I heard Mystery Inc. is like phenomenal. So I really do need to check that out. But I love Scooby-Doo. I've loved Scooby. I've grown up on Scooby-Doo. That was like reruns and reruns. Scooby-Doo and the Harlem Globetrotters, Three Stooges, Batman and Robin, Addams Family, all that stuff. I love the Three Stooges, or not the three. I do love the Three Stooges, but I love Scooby-Doo and all the versions that they've had. So I was curious about this movie going into it, and I'm happy I liked it. I'm very happy I liked it because I'm like, man, if they screw up Scooby-Doo, I'm gonna be really upset. I'm gonna be really disappointed here. But it was good. It was really good. Like, it was funny. Like, it shows them, of course, if you've seen the trailer, it starts off a little bit with them as kids and stuff, and we get to see them, during Halloween, and that's pretty cool. They're all in different costumes. They have some good jokes there, which I'll talk more about in the spoiler segment because I have like a whole list here of all the really funny stuff that they did. So some stuff I'll reference from here, in the non-spoiler, way, and then when I get to spoilers, I'll go into like some of the actual stuff because they have a ton of references in this movie. Because of course, seemingly, this could be the start of like the sort of Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe, if you will, because of course that's what everything is now. And I wouldn't mind. I loved it. I thought they did a good job with Scooby. They have a million references. I'll let you guys find all those references. I'll talk about all that stuff in spoilers, but as far as non-spoiler wise, they're just a buttload of references. So if you are like older, even older than me, people who actually grew up seeing like Scooby-Doo when it was new, stuff like that, those people are gonna enjoy it because it's like you get a ton of great nostalgia from it. I think the story itself is actually good. They use Dick Dastardly as the main villain, so that in itself is like a big deal because no one effing knows who that is if they do, So pretty much most of the people that this movie is technically geared towards wouldn't have no freaking clue who the main villain even is, or technically even the main hero. Like, a bunch of the kids who would watch this don't know who Blue Falcon is. Like, I know Blue Falcon, but even then, I'm not like, it's funny, they kind of reference this in the movie, but I'm more familiar with Dynamite than I am with Blue Falcon because it's just like, oh, the dog sticks out. Like, I don't really know the character or anything like that. I've just seen Dynamite do silly things because, admittedly, Harvey Birdman, attorney at law, so that was my secondary, introduction to a lot of characters. Like, you see them all with Scooby-Doo and Flintstones and Jetsons, and you see the commercials, but those are kind of like the big three. Scooby-Doo, Flintstones, Jetsons, those are your big ones. And then after that is like, okay, Hong Kong Phooey, I've known. Captain Caveman, you kind of have to know Captain Caveman. And then the other characters kind of, they're just in there, especially if you grew up on Boomerang. But the ones I stuck to were my big three. So Scooby and the Gang, Flintstones, Jetsons. And then everyone else was like, okay, I like this one, Hong Kong Phooey, I watched a bunch. Stuff like that. So I like how they handled it. And I was like, okay, it's a modern version of the characters with Scooby and the Gang. But they still do it whereas like the characters have existed because of how they handle like Blue Falcon and things like that, and characters being older. And I was like, okay, that's a cool way to handle it. Like I said, tons of references. So I love the ones that I knew. I was like, oh, that's cool. Even characters I didn't know the name of, I was like, oh, that's cool. I some characters you just recognize, you just don't know the name is, that sort of thing. So I was like, that's really cool. They have one like technically at the end of the movie where I was like, that's super cool. It might not mean anything, but for me it was one of the shows it was one of the other shows. It was more the remake of that show where I was like, I freaking love that show. So I don't know if they'll do anything with it, but I was like, that's a sweet reference because I love that, growing up, they're technically a remake, but I love that remake of that show. So I'll talk about that once again, spoiler wise. So I'll see what I can talk about on here that I don't really want to spoil story wise. But I feel like there's not much. I feel like everything here, spoiler, reference-wise, I don't want to spoil it because that's part of the joy. But lots of great references, lots of good jokes. Yeah, pretty much everything I have on here is pretty much a straight-up spoiler. Like, you might not know some stuff. Like, I didn't know because I didn't really look into information. So, some information, I don't know what is even out there and what wasn't out there. So, not much I can say. Blue Falcon is great. Dynamite is cool. Dick Dastardly is pretty awesome. Scooby and the Gang is cool. I feel like they got their personalities down. I was definitely weary, voice-wise. I was a little annoyed. I was like, I don't know. I can't freaking do it. They got Frank Welker as Scooby, but they didn't get Frank Welker it's Freddy. And I was like, I just don't know. It feels weird. We don't have our, it's Will Forte is Shaggy, and I was like, it's not like Matthew Lillard died. This dude's a good Shaggy. Like he should have been Shaggy, but they need their big names. Not that I gave a crap because I can remember who the F anybody was when I was watching. I was like, who are these people? That voice sounds familiar. I wouldn't care. As long as it sounds fine, it's fine. And ultimately, I was like, okay, I'm okay with it. Still, like they did a good job. All the people, Zac Efron ended up being Freddy. He actually did a really good job. He was funny. It was Shaggy that I was mostly worried about because I was like, I just don't know with the voice. And eventually, same as anything, you hear it enough, you just get used to it. So it's like, all right, it's cool. It still bugged me, like even when because the movie starts with with them being kids, so it starts with the flashback stuff. So when it transitioned, then I was just like, oh, and I still have to adjust a little bit into the movie. And I was like, but it was fine. It was all good. Everyone, I thought it was genuinely, it was just Shaggy, and that was literally it. Everyone else, I had no concerns with whatsoever. I just wanted Frank Welker to be Freddy because they had him as Scooby, and I was kind of annoyed at that. And I was just like, why don't you just use Frank Welker then? Because he's a great effing voice actor. I also didn't, excuse me, aside from the Shaggy thing, with Scooby, I was concerned when I first saw the trailer. I was like, Scooby talks too much. This is going to make the movie weird to me. And I actually got used to that too. I was very surprised by that one because like I figured it would be easier for me to get used to Shaggy because like, okay, it's a different voice for Shaggy, but it's still just Shaggy. Scooby like talks, but he like genuinely they have like full on conversations in this movie, and I actually was okay with it. Like I thought I would hate it because I was like, Scooby talks way too, like it was messing with my head way more than the Shaggy thing. I was like, Scooby talks too much, and it was annoying me watching the trailer because I'm like, I don't know if I'll be able to handle like hearing Scooby in full sentences, and it's still Scooby speak with the rut-row and all that stuff. So I was like, I don't know how that's gonna work, but I think it was sporadic enough to where I was like, okay, it didn't freak me out like I thought it would. Because from the trailer, when it's all condensed and it's like a bunch of the conversations where he's talking to Shaggy, I was worried. I was like, he talks way too much, and it just sounded weird because he's supposed to have like his 2-word sentences, or if he says like a sentence, it's really rut-row plus Raggy, and that's really it. Like most of his sentences are 2 to 3 words long, and they were he was saying a lot of stuff, and it's like, oh, this feels weird, but I got used to it pretty quick, and I was like, okay. The two things I was kind of concerned about had no issues with. Once I adjusted, it was fine. It took like a couple of minutes a piece, like just a few sentences, and I was like, oh, all right, and it was all fine. And after that, it's just the movie, and the movie's good. The movie's freaking funny, so really enjoyed it. Like I said, I feel like everything I wrote down is straight up references, so I don't want to spoil any of those. But highly recommend you check it out. I think it's $10. I think I rented it for $10 off of Amazon, and who knows how much it is, YouTube or whatever. But I think it's worth it. I think, especially if you have a family, if you want to show someone Scooby Doo, it's a great movie. If you want, you're trying to get your kids into it, or you just want to see Scooby Doo because you're a nerd like me and you love freaking Scooby Doo. Obviously with the shirt. This also says Munchies at the bottom, but hey, that's just how it goes. But that's just how it is with Scooby-Doo. So I love Scooby-Doo. I was like, I have to pay the money to see this movie, and I really enjoyed it. Like I don't think I would mind owning this. I don't think I'll buy it. And if I do, I wouldn't buy it until like it came out physical. I just like to have like physical Blu-rays and stuff. I don't know why. It would be better technically to have it. I assume Amazon eventually would just rule the world. So I don't, I'm not concerned about the servers going away, but I think it's actually worth picking up. I'd be okay with that. I was like, all right, let's see what happens. They might do a sequel. They might just, well, it's Scooby-Doo, so of course, if this does well, because metrics and however this works, I have no idea what counts as like, oh, it made a buttload of money. Like, we're in weird times right now, so they might get a sequel. But I think it's worthy of one. Like, considering the writing, the jokes, the references, I think they did a good job. So I would look forward to a sequel if they actually had one. So I recommend checking it out. Yeah, I guess just rent it online. I mean, I can't say go to the theater or matinee, this and that. I say it's worth full price, in all honesty. Like, if I was going to the movies, I would not have been disappointed. So I say it's worth it. So check it out. Rent it or buy it if you prefer. But I definitely think it's a good one. So that's my opinion on it. But getting into full spoilers, so go see the movie if you haven't. But if you don't mind spoilers, I'm going to get into all of the really awesome references that they had throughout, because I got like a page and a half on my little notepad here. Excuse me. There. Starting off at the top, I have Don Messick. Of course, stupid phlegm. Not sick, not Well, not deadly sick. So they have a reference to Don Messick with Messick Mountain, which is where they end up going towards the end of the movie, where they meet Captain Caveman, which is awesome. I knew he was going to be in the movie. That was one of like their first big announcements, and I was like, that's cool, Captain Caveman. But Don Messick is the original voice actor for Scooby Doo, and as soon as they said Messick Mountain, I was like, I know who that is, and I thought that was cool. So I really like that reference. Blue Falcon is hilarious. Blue Falcon, Brian, so funny. Because I was like, okay, I just assumed, like, going into this, like I said, I didn't do any research. I just thought it was Blue Falcon. Like, that's all there was to it. It was an updated version of Blue Falcon. And it was like, okay, I knew they were doing Dick Dastardly and stuff. So I was like, all right, it'll be interesting to see how they incorporate the characters because it's a modern version of them. But technically, it's not. It's still just those characters from whatever year they may or may not have been born, because even with Dick Dastardly, it's just like date of birth. If you like look at the thing, well, because we're home, so if you pause the thing, you can look at like his info, and his date of birth says like he doesn't remember. It also said that his skin was pasty and his hair was greasy black, and I thought that was funny. So Dick Dastardly is still like the really old dude from like the old cartoons, and Blue Falcon is still the old Blue Falcon, and his son in this is the new Blue Falcon. So I thought that was cool because like they even have the book. The book thing was, so they made some like mature jokes that were hilarious in this. They referenced Tinder, which I thought was funny. Dropping F-bombs, that was a really good joke. And then the Just Falcon Around, or the No Falcon Around, and then Just Falcon Around, the books, I thought that was really funny too. I was like, they have some great wordplay in this movie. But Brian's hilarious. I like the way they handled it. I like the costume and stuff. I was like, okay, I'd seen the costume from early trailers, so I was already like, cool. I'm not the biggest, Blue Falcon fan. I don't know much about him. I figured I'd kind of learn a little bit about him in this. Not too much, considering it actually ended up being his son. I just assumed it was going to be a young, new version of Blue Falcon. But instead, it actually is the second Blue Falcon. So they're kind of opening up a lot of opportunities, because that means that if they want to, they really could do a super old school style movie where it's genuinely like the old Blue Falcon, and it could be like a prequel to the, if they're really trying to do a whole universe type of deal, they could make all those movies. They could make the new Blue Falcon movie, and then they could make an old school Blue Falcon movie. They'd have to get the right people if they're going to have, two versions and do that sort of thing. And odds are they would probably just make a Blue Falcon movie and then just have like flashbacks with his dad, stuff like, classic old school hero move. So they opened up, the book for that one, and I was like, that's kind of a cool idea. The old characters are still older, and what may or may not happen within this new version, this weird new version of the Hanna-Barbera universe, they can go from there. So I thought that was pretty cool. There are so many things. Like I said, the F-bomb thing was funny. Tinder joke was funny. The one that really got me was when Scooby and Shaggy were trying to figure out, like, so what's going on? And he said, Dick Dastardly was trying to get the three seashells of Seabiscuit, or the three shells of Seabiscuit. That cracked me up. I thought that was the funniest thing. I was like, that is so dumb, but it was perfect. Same with him at the end being the DJ, and he's like, pumping his arms and stuff. And I was like, this is so stupid, but it's perfect stupid. And it just made me laugh. Like, he's such a perfect dumb character. And he has his hero moment, of course, at the end, but for the most part, he was dumb. It was genuinely like at the end, because he wasn't really the main character, so they didn't have like the most dramatic thing. It was just like, he just kind of had his hero moment finally, at the end. So I loved it. I thought it was pretty funny. I do like the outfit. I thought it looked really cool. Watching it on TV, I was like, man, I kind of wish I could see this in theaters, because I thought the CG for the movie was fantastic. I thought it looked really, really good. So Blue Falcon, hilarious, very dumb, very, very dumb, but awesome. They had the Hex Girls in there. They had the Hex Girls when they're at the carnival. There's a poster, and they have a pinball machine of the Hex Girls, so that was awesome. I was like, they had the 2D poster, and it was like old school looking Hex Girls. I was like, that's great. Always had a crush on them, because that's like early hot animated characters for me. But that was cool. I like the Hex Girls. They also had a Laugh Olympics game, which is pretty cool, which they also reference at the end of the movie when they do like the first cinematic credits, I guess. And when Dastardly is getting rescued from prison, they have like the wacky racist stuff, the posters on the wall. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's like the wacky races is a part of the Laugh Olympics. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Jabberjaw. I couldn't believe they put Jabberjaw in there. Like at the end, they had Jabberjaw, Great Ape, I wrote on the back, and they had like the tiny ant person. I don't know who that was. Like, I don't think I'd ever seen that person. I knew who Jabberjaw was. I recognized Great Ape, but I had to read like the little ticker to get the name. But I was like, I have no clue who that like tiny person, like the armored up suit was. So that person I didn't recognize, but Jabberjaw was like, holy crap, knock off Scooby-Doo. So that was interesting. I kind of couldn't believe it, but Jabberjaw was in there, so that was pretty cool. The cop scene with Fred, hilarious. The way he was smiling, like when they were having the conversation where it would be like, Daphne and Velma were talking to the cop and Dashley was like getting mad. His face was so dumb. Like he was just having this stupid smile on his face. And then of course when the mask comes off, he's like, I have so many conflicted feelings. So I love that. The joke that they had just before that as well cracked me up when she was like, do you know how fast you were going? And the car just goes like, you know, like right behind her. I was like, that's a good joke. That was really funny. So I love that. The pointing in anger scene, also hilarious with Fred and Falcon is like, don't point at me. And there's like, well, I'll double point and I'll triple point and quadruple point. Also a really good scene. Fred wore the ascot. That was pretty cool. That was another thing. Was like, modern jacket. I was like, I'll let it slide. But they did do the reference, and I was like, I at least appreciate that. He threw on the ascot for that second, got flicked by a Cerberus. I was like, all right. He had the ascot, and they had a little joke in the book at the end during the credits where it was like, our kerchief's like the new style, and it was like, you bet your ascot I'll do that. And I thought that's a good written joke. The spare Scooby snack joke, also really funny. I love that one. Scooby was like, I'm so weak, and I was like, I get that. I just bought like 40 boneless wings from Buffalo Wild Wings. Buy one, get one free. I indulged a bit, which I do not regret. How Shaggy says like at the beginning of his sentences when they reference that at the bowling alley, I was like, that's hilarious. That was a really good one. Also, Shaggy's name is like Norvell or something like that. I didn't know that. I always thought his name was genuinely Shaggy Rogers because they don't say his last name, but I always knew like Shaggy's name was Shaggy Rogers. I actually don't know anyone else's name in that show, like their last names. I always knew like Shaggy Rogers. So that really shocked me. I was like, I didn't know that Shaggy was his nickname. I genuinely thought his name was Shaggy Rogers. So that caught me off guard. That's a new bit of knowledge for me. What else they have at the end? Other reference. They had Rosie. They had another robot. It looked like almost like a Frankenbot sort of thing. So that was interesting. They showed a captured scientist, like a little rave thing. I recognized the guy, didn't know his name. But my favorite one, the one I was talking about, they were at Quest Labs. Blew my mind. I was like, holy crap. I love Johnny Quest. That Johnny Quest remake that used to be on Cartoon Network, I freaking love that show. So when they show like Quest Labs, I was like, oh man, I would love a cool Johnny Quest movie. That would be freaking amazing. And apparently they're the ones that make Rosie that appears in the Jetsons, which I thought was a cool idea and totally made sense. I was like, it's like early. I mean, I know it's just a reference, but in the context of the world, I was like, that's a cool thing. Like if they made that actual connection, and it would totally make sense. They also they pass when Fred, Daphne, and Velma are driving. They pass Jellystone National Park. I thought that was cool. That's Yogi Bear, for anyone who doesn't know. So I was like, that's pretty cool. Jellystone National Park. I'm sure there are other references. I know they had I can't remember the guy's name, but the dude who had Magilla Gorilla for sale. I always remember that music video because I always thought it was catchy. It's not as catchy as the Dexter's Lab one that used to be on Cartoon Network, but Magilla Gorilla for sale. I always remember that. So they had that store there. I knew that. I know the place where they bowl is like the name of an older artist or writer for one of the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Was it Tokiyami Bowl or something? Like the name of that place is an actual person. So there are still a bunch of other references in the movie that I'm sure I don't know because I don't even know the characters. I remember they had a Hong Kong Phooey in there. I think it was when they were throwing all the stuff at the arcade. Hong Kong Phooey, love that. Captain Caveman, of course, was awesome. I love when he like got knocked away and he was like, oh, he saw the wheels and he was like, oh, cool wheels. And he gets knocked away and he's like, whatever wheels are. And I was like, that's a really dumb joke, but it was also good because he shouldn't know that, but he did. But then it's like a weird meta thing where it's like, he shouldn't know that. And even he knows that he shouldn't know that, whatever wheels are. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Once again, silly, dumb joke. Ending of the movie was cool. I like that, they go to Athens and they like, when they actually open the door, it recreates everything and they have like the green flames and everything's ornate and stuff. And I was like, that's actually really cool. And of course, once they do it, they have their dramatic moment. But of course, they get Shaggy back. And I was like, cool. They had their surprise, sad moment, but everything was fine. And then they go on and have a cool party. And I was like, I like this. Good movie. So really enjoyed it. Love Scooby-Doo. And this is a good addition to the franchise, so I'm glad I saw it. I'm excited for what they do next, because I'm pretty sure, I would assume that this would be fine. They might, at the very least, consider how things are going, so the metrics might be skewed a little bit, and they'll be okay with that. But, like I said, I would not mind this getting the sequel, or seeing what they do outside of it. Just to see them bring back, old Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I know they would love to, because money. But if they can do it right, then I want to see it. So I would love to see it done. I would love to see Hong Kong Phooey. That would just be insane. Like, how do you do Hong Kong Phooey now? Also, Oh, this is probably one of my favorite things. They recreated the opening to Scooby Doo when the kids like first agree to like team up, and they recreate the opening to Scooby Doo Where Are You? That was awesome, and also it gets a 10 out of 10 because I was like, I know they're gonna put it in the movie. I know for a fact Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Like the main theme is gonna be somewhere in this movie. I figured it would be like at the end credits they would just play the song, but they recreated it in 3D. Looks amazing because I was like, holy crap! It's the actual opening, like the part where they crash into the robot and they look up and he looks down like in CG. I was like, that looks so good to me. I was like, I just want one full episode of Scooby Doo to just look like this and just be like recreate an episode I've already seen exactly like the movie looks, and I would die. Like it just looks so good. I was like, man, this is weird. It's the actual opening and stuff, and it goes from them, changing them from kids to adults. But I was just like, this looks so sweet, and I love it. And they put the line in, my favorite line, which sometimes they cut out, and I hate it when they do it. And it's actually the part where he looks up at the robot, and it's the you get a Scooby snack, and then it says, that's a fact. They put it in. I was like, 10 out of 10 movie, because people cut that out all the time, and that drives me insane. I'm like, that's like my favorite line, and it's rarely in the episode. It's like, I don't know why they cut that. I'm like, it's like one actual line. It's the only thing that gets cut in like the whole intro. Like that's technically the shortened intro. It's like one extra line gets cut, and I've always thought, how can they possibly? Like, it was always so weird. Just the way they always time the episodes. I guess sometimes they had enough to just throw that extra line in. Most of the time they didn't. Doesn't make sense because technically it didn't make it any longer. It was still with the animation. They just wouldn't put the line in. I don't understand why. So if anyone knows the real answer to that, please explain it. But they used the that's a fact part, which is like my favorite thing. I always pause and I'm like, are they going to say it? And they had that's a fact. And I was like, 10 out of 10 movie. And that was in the beginning. But I was thinking about it. I was like, if these credits don't have the that's a fact in it, I'm going to be pissed. But they had it in the opening and I was happy. I was like, all right, I have no reason to hate this movie. It's good. So I enjoyed it. Would love to know what you guys thought about this movie, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it, and of course, would you guys like to see a sequel? Would you guys like to see them, pull off a Hanna-Barbera universe? What would you like to see from that? There are a ton of characters, of course, in Hanna-Barbera that we didn't see from this. They might redo the Flintstones. That, in all honesty, they'll probably pick, their big three. Like I said, I personally, if they could do it right, I would love Johnny Quest because that would just be really cool. And I think that would be a real easy moneymaker. Just it's like a cool kids, teen science spy movie. It's basically a young adult novel. But they might as well do it. So that's my opinion on it. I also wouldn't mind to see what they do with this version of Blue Falcon and showing the old Blue Falcon, stuff like that. I think they could do a million things, showing that the characters are older, so they can have older versions and the newer versions. Cool idea. So that's what I think. Would love to know what you guys think. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.